Hey family, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? How are things going? How you doing? Welcome to another session of Soul Therapy Live, where we're going to talk about real topics, real things that's going on in life, and also how those particular real things can really impact, your life as well as other people's lives. So I'm just so glad to be back with you once again on this Wednesday night, and it's going to I think this is going to be a great topic, and I'm going to narrow the audience just a little bit. But before I do, one of the things that I definitely want to, one of the things that I definitely want to share with our audience, especially in regards to this topic, is that it's going to be narrow in scope this time. And what do I mean by narrowing in scope? Well, this is for all of my young men that are out there. And so, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to, how should I say, give some encouraging words, but also look at some of the dangers of um, what I would call your appearance and looks maxing. Now, I was looking at a couple of trends, and this actually happens to be something that is actually on a lot of people's minds at this moment in time. And what I mean by that is, our appearance, how we see ourselves, what do you actually think about yourself and actually beyond. And so, the area of self improvement is very, very key, and especially for guys and for young men, how you look really dictates how you are perceived, right? What kind of things are you communicating non-verbally by the way that you look, the way that you walk, and the way that you talk? There's a lot of things that you know that you should take into consideration, especially when it comes to interacting with others in the public space. So I just wanted to share with you all just a couple of, just a couple of, just really minor things that I think that will be very beneficial to you. Some just, just some general wisdom over the next several minutes or so that I think that'll be beneficial. This is not going to be super informal, not going to be super deep, but I do think that there is a phenomenon that is really driving people and shaping the way that young men perceive themselves. One of the most startling statistics that I actually saw most recently was that, at least as far as young men, there's a very large trend of them returning back to faith or going back to church. And the key question here is why. And of course, there's a lot of several factors, being exposed to the gospel, certain major figures really articulating things out in the public square. I would also say that platforms like TikTok, which has a lot of short form videos, but they also have a format to where it allows for you to ask questions really about very, very, very explosive topics. And so I think that it's something that, you know, it should definitely be something that we could look at as a whole, as well as a couple of other things. And so, appearance. And the real question is, does that match up with our confidence? You know that there's some people who look good, but they don't have the character. We have some people that have great character, but they, according to other people's opinions, may not necessarily be easy on the actual eyes. What can you do about it? Well, whatever God gave you is what you have. And whatever you have is actually what it's going to be. And so I think that if anything, you need to be confident in yourself. I think that you need to know who you are and what your purpose actually is. But sometimes, especially when you're younger, you don't really key in on that very early. And so, self improvement, as I kind of look at a little bit of my podcast notes here, self improvement is really about intentional growth, discipline, mindset, your health, the type of skills that you have, and most importantly, at least in my book, your character. That's one side of it as far as self-improvement. The other side of that is looks maxing. Now, I said looks maxing, but looks maxing has a really odd, it's almost like it's a made up word. And the main word is spelled out like this. It's Look, look, Smaxxing, which basically means I'm going to optimize my physical appearance through fitness, through grooming, style, posture, because I caught myself right there. Posture, and of course, other things that really garner attention. And I think this is definitely something that is seen even in our current day and time because there's so many people that are online, and there are so many um, people that are looking for love and or relationships, and a lot of that is through social media or through the actual internet. And I even see a lot of that specific trend even among our Generation Z, or my sons, if you will, to where I see the young ladies, and sometimes I look at TikTok and I see some of the commentary such as, well, y'all won't even come up to us. It's almost like what I saw in Daytona Beach from those of my son's generation, and just listening to some of the comments that are coming from that particular place. And one of the comments was that the young men won't even talk to us. They won't talk to us, and I was like, well, some of them like, well, not all of us, and of course, it's never not all, but they won't talk to us. And when I did look at some of the crowd, there were some who did have social skills, but there was a lot that didn't have social skills. There was desired interaction, but typically from pre-existing friends, but not necessarily how to strike up conversations with people that they don't really know. And then for the young men, especially if you are from certain communities, the goal was definitely for them to be with their friends, but they were more so looking out for the ops. The ops, what are you looking at ops when you're supposed to be on break having fun, right? You're more so interested at the threat as opposed to focusing on perhaps making friends with the opposite sex or vice versa. And sometimes, as I understand it, it's not always about that, but this is just what I hear. This is what I hear from the actual streets. And so, being that there are some individuals that kind of struggle with that, well, there's some things that you can do. So I'm just going to kind of like speak as a father would to his young sons, or if you happen to be of age and you're kind of figuring out, okay, well, what can I do as far as my appearance? Well, of course, and I'm just going to speak to this kind of like practically, right? Um, and I'll kind of put it this way: there is a difference between vanity and then self-confidence. There's a difference between looks maxing, which you're trying to maximize your appearance, but doesn't really have an end game to it, right? And then, of course, um, there is doing things in moderation. I'm kind of reminded of the song that one of that I heard someone sing a little while ago. It says, "You're so vain, you think this song is about you." Or from a biblical standpoint, vanity, oh vanity, it's all vanity. There was actually even a group back in the day called Vanity or Vanity Six, I think, right? Don't even get into what all of the songs that I'm into and what have listened to over the years. But vanity is just, kind of like a play on you're all about the outside, but not the inside. But I think that there are a lot of young men that want to have both. They want to not only look the part, but they also want to have the corresponding character. And that is a very strong place to be. So I'll start, first of all, just with the way that you get up and you look at yourself in the mirror. Your grooming is very important, right? I always went to get my haircut every 2 weeks, if at all possible. And if I couldn't afford a haircut, then I developed a skill, especially when I was in college, of cutting my own hair, right? Even if I made my mistakes, right? So I'll take a mirror and I'll go to another mirror and then I take my clippers and I start going around my head, giving myself an edge and kind of practicing, right? And of course, if you mess up, you just do the bald head. So by all means, make sure that you use a guard and look at the mirror and take your time, right? Take your time. But if you are fortunate enough to be able to afford to be able to groom yourself, right? Do it every 2 weeks and make sure that the type of things that you put inside of your hair match with the course and texture of your hair, right? So of course, I'm African American, as you can see, right? I look great, don't I, right? So I put certain types of products inside of my hair that would make sure that my scalp is healthy, and of course, making sure that my hair was not dry. Because if there's anything that is a major turn off to anybody, it is you having dandruff. And when I was growing up, they used to call it the dozens in my parents' generation, but then they went on to like get ranked on. That might be a southern term for getting roasted. It's kind of like being roasted nowadays, right? So if you have dandruff on your shoulder, you scratch your hair, then you have dandruff on your shoulder, that's not really a good look. Or if your breath is not smelling good, that's like a major turnoff, whether you're talking to someone that you're interested or somebody who potentially is interested in you, it's not a good look, and it definitely is not a good smell. So, your personal appearance, of course, is very important because it tells people that it communicates a message right before someone actually talks to you. So, again, hair products, I remember things such as like Queen Bergamot and, other, one of my favorite ones was like this kind of like this tea hair moisturizer that really smelled really good. And the reason why I knew that it smelled good is because I got compliments for it, right? And then my dad was a really big on cologne. And back in the day, it was like Brute cologne and Old Spice. And I picked up on that, and there are even some colognes that I still have from my college days, right? So I have certain fragrances that are my wife's favorite, and then of course there's other fragrances that I like, whether it is, oh, you say you like Blue Magic? Oh yeah, Blue Magic is some of that, right? Queen Bergamot was the green stuff. Blue Magic, I think that I don't know how old that is. That's a little bit more recent, but you know, hair tea extract. I really love the smell. Pink oil moisturizer was another good one that I used to use many years ago. No matter the branding, the point is, no matter the branding, it showed that you wanted to take care of yourself. And I did that even if I was not going on a date. I made sure that I wore a nice shirt. For many, many years, I used to wear this horse right here, right? And before I could get to polo, I used to wear USA Polo Association. It didn't matter as long as it was ironed, pressed. You actually had um, um, iron clothes. Actually, one of those things where my mom actually really made us iron our clothes before we went to school in the morning. So I would pull out the ironing board and I would iron my clothes. And my mom and my dad used to tell me about having creases in my pants. So ain't I fresh? So I ironed my clothes, made sure I had creases inside of my pants. I made sure that I would pull out a washcloth and then wipe the white around the bottoms of my tennis shoes. Now, where did I get all of that from? Well, it made me feel good about myself. I wanted young ladies that I was interested in to also, at that time when I was younger, to see that I also care about myself. But then there was another side to that. Sometimes when you're growing up and you grow up without having much, then you get picked on. So I combated that in a positive way by not really going back and forth with people. I really wasn't into that. I actually diffused a lot of things. I don't know. I was just one of those kids where I diffused it where I really listened to what my dad said. And it was like, it's not about the outside, it's about the inside. Or sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And even though they did sting sometimes, but I really believe that. And so I would just take the time out to make sure that I ironed my clothes, I brushed my teeth, I combed my hair, I made sure that I had if I couldn't get a good haircut, I would use some small little clippers and then I would just go ahead and I would just edge them up, and then that would be pretty much the gist of it, and that would be the extent of it, right? Make sure that you wash behind your ears because it has a little smell. If you don't understand, wash it behind your ears, all of the necessary places, right? And I'm talking about going beyond, especially for our young men, just having a sponge bath, right? I get it. Sometimes you're in a rush. Sometimes it's like that, but you do have to go beyond that. And it all is a reflection on how you see yourself. Now, that is just the visual part. But then sometimes when you're talking to others, it goes down the drain by what you say. there's nothing more irritating to some people than somebody that looks nice, but then what comes out of their mouth is foul or trash, right? How you carry yourself, right? You have to say sir, no sir, or yes or no. My parents kind of gave me the option. They didn't really harp on yes ma'am or no ma'am. I kind of developed that as my own habit, but I would say yes or no, or yes ma'am or no ma'am. And I still kind of carry that even to this day. Polite, having manners, knowing how to carry on the conversation, being mindful of my appearance, and and you don't have to wear name brand things in order to be able to do that. So I'll give you like one particular example, right? So my wife loves to get all different types of lotions from Bath and Body Works. Axe is another brand that I like to use for body spray. So that's like something that you can get. This is kind of like the marble stuff. And I got a whole bunch of those different types that are out there. There is also, different mini kind of containers that you can also take. And what I would do when I was growing up is that I would take this and put it inside of my shoulder bag. A lot of young people love the shoulder bags. You don't need to look threatening to everybody. You just need to get you some lotion, get you a toothbrush, get you some mouthwash, and put it in side of your small bag and always keep it on you. You can do the smell test, right? And everybody kind of knows when their breath is kind of funky. So you do the smell test. Everybody don't need to tell you that, right? Brush your tongue. I got this little scraper. I have that now, but back in the day, my mom would just say, brush your tongue. Get rid of all that stuff before the night before. Make sure you got on clean drawers, all of those different types of things. Those are just like normal things as far as like your clothing. Then, after you have your appearance, it's about what you say and how you articulate yourself. If you're friendly, if you're affable, and also if you're confident. And the confidence thing is something that I even still have to work on to this day. And I kind of caught myself today a little bit at work to where, what this one time when I was at work to where even as old as I am, sometimes I have those moments to where I may feel that I got to earn this or I'm not qualified when I go up to this particular person. But it's simply not the case. So I had to catch myself. I had to catch myself and say to myself, you know what? I'm walking up to this particular person and I want to make sure that I'm not wasting their time. But then I also have to have the mindset that I don't want them to waste my time either. And that it's also a privilege not only for me to be in their presence, but also for them to be in mine. And it's almost like a shift from going from somebody who is, you know, just being there in servant mode to be more of an executive mindset. And this is even before you actually get the job. Very, very, very important. And it does not have to cost you a lot of money. So one of the ways that I kind of circumvented that, especially for those of you that don't like to spend money on clothes and things like that, brother Martin loves fashion. I love fashion. I love clothes. I love spending money on those things because my dad was and my dad did that. And my mom used to say, one of the things I loved about your father is that he knew how to dance, wink, wink. The trend continues, right? And he also knew how to dress. And I was like, my dad know how to dress, really? But then I used to look at his ties and his clothes. I used to steal some of his clothes, like my kids steal my clothes and my cologne and all of that stuff. And I used to put it on and I used to see his younger pictures. And I was like, yeah, I see daddy now and I see the hairline now as he's older, but then when he was younger, he had a six pack. And then my sons, they see me now, but then I show them my pictures from Black Beach weekend back in the 90s. And it's like, Dad, you look like that. You have all of your hair. It's just like they're just amazed at this whole thing, right? And then what has been such a compliment, even as a person that is in the early, that just turned 50 a little while ago, right? Even some of the best compliments that my sons give, both my wife and I, is that you guys look like y'all are so young and that time has actually stood still. So not only how you smell, how you dress, you don't have to buy name brand clothes. Again, I'm 50, so the clothing that I can afford now is not the same type of clothing that I could get back then. Back then, I went to TJ Maxx, Marshalls. I used to go to the discount rack. We used to hunt for polo shirts. I'm going really far back. Duckhead pants. Y'all don't know about that though. That duckhead. I used to have duckhead shirts and duckhead pants, or Dickies was like the hood classic back in the day, and all of these other different types of things that were so cutting edge for my era. I'm come from the British Knights era, or wearing Rockports. Those are all different types of preppy looks that I used to really want it to look like because I I wanted to look the part. I wanted to have both the outside and the inside look very nice. Chapstick. Okay. So again, most of the reason why I did this is because of my parents and my dad, but also getting roasted. I did not take roasted and just fight everybody. I looked at the truth of what people are saying. So I take some. If you got the white mouth, anybody heard of you getting the white mouth, or you getting ranked on, and somebody say you look really hungry right now, you get you some chapstick. You go ahead and put that thing on. Get those corners in there. All the other stuff like that. Right? Hey, Jose, I still wear Dickies. I wore Dickies white pants for many, many, many years. Right? They just cycled out, what have you. But yes, I still wear those things. And the way that I save money, back in the day, and even many years right now, is that I never buy name brand pants because nobody looks at no labels on those pants. I lose that long time ago. But I made sure that they fitted, not overly baggy, right? I didn't want to dress like the 90s, everything's very, very the 90s was very, very the clothes were very baggy and they were also very, very colorful. You go back some years before that to the 80s, everything was extremely colorful and a little bit more form fitting. And of course, in the 60s, everything was tapered pants. It's like you see that everybody with the skinny jeans, all of that stuff was around in the 50s and 60s, even up until now. And now you still have the tapered pants, which I actually kind of like that. It's kind of like a balance between the two, to where I won't wear any skinny jeans. You won't see that to the furthest extent, but you don't have to be very baggy either. You want to wear clothing that fits your body type and clothes that um, try to send an actual message. So even if you're a blue collar worker, you can look the part. If you're somebody that's working out in the field, you can work the part. It doesn't matter if you're blue collar, white collar, green collar, whatever kind of collar you want. Make sure that you look the part. So I would always buy like off-brand pants, but then I may have a name brand shirt or something that had really nice colors, or I would have accent jewelry. Like I like to wear the beads right now, and I get these beads for like maybe like $24 for like a pack of like 24 beads because I love the beads. Back in my time, everybody wore gold. You didn't wear silver because silver was like you didn't have enough money. So that's what I grew up with. And I used to go to the little center of the store and get those gold chains. A lot of those things have changed now, and jewelry um, went through a little dip, and then now it's a big giant trend where everybody wears the different type of big gold chains that almost looks like a choker, right? So there's things that match with your age, and that's also another point as well. So there's a way that you dress as a young man, but then there's also a way that you dress when you are older as well. I don't need to dress as if I'm 20 years old, but I also don't need to dress as if I am 70 years old, right? There are certain ways that you could dress for your age range that actually look really, really good. Okay. So keep all of those things in mind. And so you want to establish some type of balance as I kind of close out around here. This is not about anti-health or anti-confidence. This is not about idolizing appearance. It's just making sure that, hey, you put your best foot forward, especially if you're in the workplace. Not only having the outside, but also the inside, making sure that you're clean. It's and you don't have to be name brand obsessed. I pop out with the name brands every now and then. My standard is wearing a polo shirt or wearing a t-shirt that has like different artistic designs, but then sometimes I like to wear things that are um, you know, superheroes, things that reflect my interests, right? But those are my own preference. Yours may be totally different. Either way, make sure that it's nice and clean, as my mom said. It's nice and clean. And then if you have a suit, every man, young man should have a suit, right? And I'm talking about the suit beyond what you get for somebody else's wedding that you're going to take back to the store. I'm talking about an independent suit that you can have for an interview. It should be a black or a brown suit. I mean, excuse me, not brown, a black or navy blue suit, something that you take the time out to go to. Um, I forgot. Oh, I forgot the name of the Men's Warehouse is one particular example, and of course they have other stores that are out there have tailors. Or Suit City, if you really feel it risky and you go out there and you want to really have a place to go that has like multiple colors or whatnot, but you need to have a blue suit, you need to have a black suit, and it needs to be fitted. If you are of a slender frame, you don't need to have a baggy suit like you're getting ready to go to court and lose. You need to have something that fits you properly. Also, get you a nice belt, right? Get you a nice belt that has at least two colors, black, and then of course you have the other side, which is cognac. And then every now and then, especially if you probably hear about the seersuckers and sundresses or the leisure suits, it's like the old name for it, to where you go to like something for the Kentucky Derby or a lot of these events to where you see the young men wearing the nice pinstripe suits and there may be like a light purple, all of those things are really nice. They used to call them leisure suits, but they're called seersucker suits. Look up those things and make sure that they actually fit on you. Okay, very, very important. So again, those are the outside pieces. And that is what is trending. A lot of young men are drawn to self improvement through their actual appearance. It is really a call because they want respect, they want confidence, attraction, and of course, competence. There is a reason why you dress a certain way to go to an actual interview. There's also a reason why you need to speak a certain way when you go to an actual interview because you're actually selling yourself. You're selling not only your skills, which are good, but you're also selling yourself as an individual, your personality type. All of those things are also very, very important. And this is even more so the case when you get married, because sometimes when we get married, we have a tendency to just kind of let ourselves go as young men. So you need to exercise, you need to eat properly, you need to work out if at all possible. All of those things are very, very important, especially as you get older, especially the working out thing. You don't want to just do it when you're young. You want to do it well into your old age because it helps fight off diseases and other ailments that you have. Case in point, right? So for the last couple several weeks, we've been fasting and of course praying myself as well as some of the other men in our ministry, the leaders, the male leaders that are in our ministry. And I got sick last week, just just a common cold. And I usually catch a common cold like maybe about once a year, which is like really, really good for me, right? So I got sick, but prior to that, I started the trend, both my wife and I, to where she takes vitamins and I take vitamins every single day. And then in the evening, we use magnesium rub to kind of make sure that the inflammation goes down and also helps with sleep because sleep is also a good way for you to get your rest and it also helps your appearance. And then what I also do is that as you get older, the pigment, especially if you're African American, the pigment in your face begins to change, and you have like, you know, more melanin around our eyes. Just depends on what your genetics are, right? So as you get older, you have sometimes you have dark circles, and sometimes that's related to genetics, but other times it's due to a lack of sleep. So what I did is that I started making sure that I got myself into bed and I didn't binge watch myself into exhaustion because my body pattern, I get up about 5 o'clock in the morning every single morning. And then if I shit, I ain't back to sleep, but usually I wake up and pray and I kind of just sit in the bed and I talk to God for usually a really long period of time. And then sometimes I fall back asleep, but a lot of times I wake up. But I feel refreshed at that time. And so what I would do is I would get up in the morning and I would get not warm water, I would get very, very cold water to help me wake myself up, but it also helps stimulate a lot of the blood that's inside of your actual face. And then I would also take lotion and I would put it like right up under my eyes because I was noticing that beyond genetics that kind of run my family, still my other side of having more like dark pigment under the eyes. It was also puffy too. A lack of rest, a lot of stress, right? So, and I never really moisturized my face. I may have like washed my face and stuff like that, put some lotion here and there, but I never started doing this part and this part. And I got that actually from my wife. So I started putting lotion up under here, along with the cold water. Make sure I get in between my face and start washing my nose so it won't get too oily because that's how acne can start breaking out even at an older age. And then I started seeing the puffs up under my eyes reduce significantly. Now I'm always going to have this because I'm not 20, I'm 50, but I don't have to look 80 or 90 at 50 because I take care of myself. I look at my appearance and I'm very, very mindful of that. Okay. So that's like one particular example. And then, of course, after that, I also stretch. And if I have time, I at least go to the gym at least 3 times a week. Okay. Gym at least 3 times a week. And so I'll kind of cap out with this because I'm already out of time. I got a lot more to talk about. I probably will pick up on this maybe next week as well, but I'll just kind of leave you with this because there's so many things that I do as far as my appearance, from the way that I dress, all of that. Because most of the time I talk about the inside. I talk about the inside the most, but I also want you to be mindful of your appearance. Not only how you look, but what you say. Okay. And how you, as my mother would say, how you carry yourself, Andre Jr., is so, so important. So make sure you remember those things, right? Don't take it to the extreme. There's people who are injecting synthol, steroids, and stuff like that that are abusing it because they want that rapid results, like basically overnight. But you don't want to abuse that. You want to do things in moderation and you want to take care of yourself. Those muscles help prevent disease. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell y'all. So I got sick and I got a cold, but I was taking those vitamins, right? Always working out. But I noticed that my recovery time for my cold, it got bad like 2 days and then I was over it. And then that was it. And that is this last cold has been the shortest length of time that I've ever had a cold for, I would say, decades, because my body was already pumped up with the proper vitamins and nutrients. I was already getting my rest. And not only that, um, I have been working out for quite some time because the more muscle mass that you have inside of your body, that muscle mass has the ability. God gave us the ability to where when you have more muscle mass inside of your body, it actually fights out diseases um, very well for you. So it's not just about you just bodybuilding, and that's also for our women as well. But that helps fight off diseases, and sicker. You get sick very rarely when you do that, right? So those are things that God has already built inside of our bodies to help us. And so again, just looking the part is just really aligned with Scripture as I close, and that is, you were bought with a price. Don't you know that you are not your own and you were bought with a price? Because this is your temple, and you can't just have the inside looking good, which is definitely the most important, but it's also your outside appearance as well, right? Man looks at the outer appearance, but God looks at the heart. We all know that is true. We also want to make sure that both are in tip-top shape, all right? God bless you, God keep you. This is my prayer, and I hope you enjoyed the actual podcast. Tune in next week when I go into some other tips as far as like how to tie a tie, because I know I got to put this thing in a two-part series, but how to actually tie a tie, and then possibly also looking at some bow ties and some different types of shoes as well. I love stuff like this. So tune in next week, and God bless you. And don't forget, we love you. There's nothing you can do about it. I hope and pray that you enjoyed this Soul Therapy Live special edition for our young men that are out there. Take care and be blessed.